Hey guys, how's it going? Shakiel Mahjouri. You can call me Shaq here for Fansided MMA. And today we have a legendary member of the Gracie family, one of the brains behind Gracie University, and the only man I've met who can eat more sushi than me in one sitting. Ryron Gracie, how's it going, sir?
Hi, Shaq. It's going great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming on. One thing I was doing my research, doing my job as a journalist, so to speak. Is it true that at UFC 1 you were tasked with wiping off the blood on the mats between fights?
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know how old I was, maybe 13 years old. And myself and my cousin Hoksong, who's no longer with us, we cleaned the mats in between rounds. And
I hear this was a little. I hear this didn't sit too well with the live audience, and so you were removed from that position following that. Is that true?
yeah, so I was fired from my first job.
At no fault of your own, I imagine.
Yeah, it is a little tricky, right? When you see a 13-year-old kid wiping blood off the octagon floor, especially when the UFC was so new, it's kind of crazy. But so I would imagine that some parents were a little shocked by that sight, not knowing who I was and the fact that I've been watching challenge matches and fights since I was, 7, 9 years old, 10 years old. So to be 13 at the UFC was another day at the park.
That's an interesting point you raise because I think you and your brother Henner are in a really interesting transition period, especially with how you brought Gracie Jiu-Jitsu to the masses with your Gracie University program online. What is it like being at an age where you kind of got to experience the gritty up and coming sport of jiu-jitsu and martial arts in those challenge matches that you speak of, and now seeing it as something that's accessible to a lot of people?
Yeah, I think growing up in that time of especially of my father and my uncles and a lot of other Gracies watching challenge matches and just seeing how the school was run and how they were, right? Because they're a different generation, right? Coming from Brazil, we're here, born and raised in America, so it was very good to be around, and I love everything about it, and I learned so much. So I'm very grateful that I was able to be, 10, 12, 14 years old around these guys that I looked up to so much. They're such great role models in many ways. So there was a lot to take from that. And I guess we took what we need to take to do what we're doing today.
So you can probably explain this better than I can. I'd love for you to elaborate on exactly how Grace University works, but to put it in a very simple box, it is a way to learn the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu curriculum online.
Yeah.
And this, as with all things innovative, especially when you're moving in with technology, it was not accepted by everyone at first. Even relatives. Apparently, Hoist Gracie wasn't too into the idea at first.
Mhm.
How?
Yeah.
What did it take for people to start warming up to it?
Well, people are still warming up to it. So basically, it started with this idea that we have to have an entry-level program for adults when they walk into our school. And the course is called Gracie Combatives, and it's 36 techniques divided in 23 lessons, and it makes it to where anybody can walk in who has no experience. Every class is taught, to the person that knows nothing, and we have a review period, and there's standing techniques and ground techniques. So it's a very well thought out entry-level program. And then once Gracie Combatives took off and people loved that, they loved the structure, Gracie Combatives is only 36 techniques. So we needed to give more. People wanted more. So Gracie University online was born to host, the hundreds of techniques after Gracie Combatives. So now you can start with Gracie Combatives online and you can go forever. You can have content for the rest of your life at your fingertips from your home, wherever you are in the world. And as for people warming up to it, naturally, anytime you do something that nobody else is doing, there's going to be a little bit of resistance, and it's just different from what people are used to, right? People think a lot about what they had to go through when it comes to the martial arts journey, and because, whether it's a student or a jiu-jitsu instructor, the truth is we were all students at one time or another. So jiu-jitsu instructors today and students around the world, they might see people that are learning techniques online and training with 2 or 3 friends on a mat or on the carpet or on a mat in the garage, and they don't agree with that. They don't think it's possible because of what they had to go through training at the gym, 3-4 days a week, getting beat up, and the not necessarily getting beat up, but the intensity that they went through with multiple training partners. They don't feel like it compares to what 2 or 3 friends can be doing at home in the safety of their home. Now, the truth is, it is not the same thing. It is different, right? Training at home with 2 or 3 dedicated friends, it might be different than training with 30, 40, 60 people in the gym. Now, there are pros and cons to both. Obviously, being in a gym with a lot of training partners is a great thing, and different body types and the camaraderie, different friendships that you build, and the different training intensities that you're going to experience. Those are very important things. And having an instructor that's there at your disposal to ask questions also has value. But then training online has lots of values that people don't seem to recognize. And the first one that I think about is you also have 2 instructors that are right there answering your questions, whether it be on the forum or you have the questions that are being answered in the video right before your eyes. So as you're watching the lesson and you're thinking, what about this? We've been teaching this for so long that we're answering questions as you're watching the video. And every question that you have that comes from a Gracie University technique, the answer is out there, right? We can be reached, and we're here to answer all questions. And if not us directly, we have other instructors of our certified instructors that are answering questions. So people are getting the information, and I've seen this, and it's been successful over the years. I've seen countless people come into our building that only train Gracie University, and they're right on track. So it's beautiful to see. And another thing also is, we always talk about how as jiu-jitsu instructors, we can only give you half of the technique, and how the other half has to come from you. And this is especially true when you're learning online. When you are at home with a friend, 2 friends, 3 friends, and you're watching a video, the level of focus is different than when you're in a room with 30 or 50 people, because it's almost like you're being spoon-fed. It gets too easy in a school sometimes. It's very easy to kind of relax and not pay attention because you have your coaches right there who'll help you in 10 minutes. But 2 or 3 friends, if they're not paying attention, they're not watching the video, then they're going to miss the whole lesson. They have to focus on what is being said. And it takes a different kind of person to go online and watch a lesson for, 15 minutes, 12 minutes, 20 minutes, to watch something and then go and practice it and work with somebody and give different levels of intensity and really be helpful and work together and not against each other. So in my opinion, it builds some very, very strong relationships. So people who are against this, they don't realize the type of people that are learning online, right? They're people who in most cases, they don't have a school within 10, 20, 30-minute drive. They don't have a school, so they're not going to be able to do jiu-jitsu unless they practice online. So what do we want more than anything in the whole world? We want the whole world understanding the values and the beauty of jiu-jitsu. So you need to be for Gracie University if you have a jiu-jitsu school, because all we're just team jiu-jitsu. We're making people from all around the world who don't have access to schools like jiu-jitsu. And then one day when they move, when they tell a friend in a different city about jiu-jitsu, now their friend stumbles into your school. So let's not worry about the fact that, somebody is not walking into your school. 95% of the time, if there's a school within 10, 20 minutes, the person will sign up at the school versus learning online.
Yeah.
And that should help people kind of rest easy and kind of calm down a little bit. I've heard people even complain about the quality of the instruction, like it was too good and that we're giving too much goodness online. And I guess I can understand to some degree that we're giving too much goodness and we're not meeting the people, and you might give to somebody who shouldn't have it, but who might be not the best person for the community. But this is happening all the time, even within schools, right? People are signing up for jiu-jitsu at schools, and 6 months later, 3 years later, they're getting in trouble with the law and they're making poor choices. So this is going to happen no matter what you do. Even if you meet the person, you stare them in the face, you teach them face to face, they will drop the ball. Some people will drop the ball. Mm-hmm. And some people will learn online. They will buy DVD sets and they'll buy, whatever they have to do in YouTube videos, and they will do bad things. And that is just life. So I think forget about the 1% that are going to mess this up. Think about the 99% that are going to do beautiful things, and they're going to help their communities, and they're going to improve their lifestyles, and they're going to be better people in this world because of the martial arts.
That's an interesting thing you mentioned. How, as an instructor, as a coach, as a teacher, how do you go about identifying people who might be learning a martial arts for the wrong reason? And is it easy to identify normally?
I feel like when somebody, first of all, when somebody walks in your school, people walk in our school because they vibe with us. They usually already know us before they walk in. They've watched a video, they follow us on some sort of social media, they went on the website, they were on Gracie University learning some free lessons. So people already know who we are. And, they say that, I was going to say birds of a feather flock together, right? Was that what they say?
Something like that.
So there's something to be said about people walk in and they know where they're going and they want to go there because we appeal to them. Very rare does somebody walk in and have a very bad attitude and a very negative energy. Unless they made a mistake and they just randomly searched jiu-jitsu and they know nothing about us and they walk in the building, that's different. And then within 10 minutes, within 1 day, within 3 days, they're going to figure out that this place is not quite the place for them and they're going to leave. Or the better option is they're going to become the person that they want to become. Because a lot of times people are very negative and they're not the most optimistic and they're difficult people and they complain all the time, but they don't want to be that way. And sometimes surrounding yourself with, people that do jiu-jitsu, and let's just say an environment like the Gracie University headquarters here in Torrance, California, when you do that, you walk in there and you say, you know what, man, I don't have to be so nervous. I don't have to be so angry. I can calm down. I can relax a little bit. I don't have to be so worried about my appearance every second. These people here, they appreciate me for who I am. I don't have to be so fake. So there's a nice relief, I'm sure, that some people feel when they walk in, and everyone is just so welcoming and so cool and so helpful.
Someone who did get into some trouble in their youth and has since made a real commitment to martial arts, and that journey is Brian Ortega. He fights Max Holloway for the UFC featherweight title at UFC 231 in Toronto on December 8th. There's your plug, UFC. How involved are you in his training? Because obviously he has a very close relationship with Ryron Gracie. Henner's typically in his corner. And I imagine when he gets into fight camp, he's training with different people. But what is your involvement day to day and during the training process or during the preparation process?
Yeah, in terms of being in Brian's corner, I feel like I've been in Brian's corner his whole life, and, throughout many different fights and throughout the years, there's been many roles together and just shared information and constantly sharpening the sword. Brian is a little bit lighter than us. Mm-hmm. So training, like actually sparring hard with myself, even though it has happened a fair amount, a good amount, it's not necessarily always the best. This fight with Max, it's a little more valuable. I was watching him and Henner spar like a couple days ago. It was great. And, Henner and I being the same size. So there's a little more use of Henner. And myself, I haven't trained with him too much right now for this fight camp with Max happening in, 2 weeks? 3 weeks? Yeah, it's like 3 weeks. Yeah, so this, haven't done too much.
4 weeks,
yeah, this fight, 4 weeks, you're right, in about a month. This fight, we haven't done any training for it. The last one that didn't happen, we did a little more for. So as for day to day, week to week, Brian has lots of people on his team. You know, he has James, who's his coach, his stand-up coach, who's basically there with him all the time, keeping his eye on him and running him through everything. And then he has his strength training team, his Mike Safai, who helps him with his strength training, and lots of different training partners. So Brian does a very good job of going where he needs to be, right? He goes after it. In terms of jiu-jitsu training, Brian's pretty much figured out jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that he's not training jiu-jitsu still. There's no doubt that he's still on the mat doing jiu-jitsu. But there's no day-to-day like me checking in with Brian. I'm sure Henry's checking in with him more, yes, a couple times a week in terms of their training and just kind of seeing how he's doing and how he's feeling. But Brian, you know, he stumbles into the academy a couple times a week into Gracie University. So it's great to see him growing and making things happen. It's exciting. And this, you know, this obviously is going to be the most serious fight of his life. Yeah. This is for the championship. But Brian has everything that he needs, right, to win this fight. Brian's been ready for this fight like he was ready last time.
Yeah.
So Brian is like, he's never been so ready. Let's put it that way.
The UFC and MMA was sort of built off the backs of the foundations that Royce Gracie and the rest of the Gracie clan laid. And since then it has evolved and it's picked up a lot of influences from a lot of different martial artists, different martial arts disciplines. How meaningful is it to you that Brian Ortega, someone who's kind of come up through this Gracie system, is now sort of championing Gracie University in such a big way, headlining a major card for the UFC?
Yeah, well, it's all about a lot of people. They see Brian fighting and doing well, and maybe the younger crowd, or I'm not sure, and they see this and Brian winning, and they're like, yeah, this is great, jiu-jitsu, you know, and jiu-jitsu. I'm very happy that Brian's doing so great. It's amazing for Brian. I'm more happy for Brian than I am for jiu-jitsu, right? Like, Brian is having the time of his life. This is Brian's time. Jiu-jitsu's time is all the time, right? When George St. Pierre fights, when Michael Bisping fights, when Luke Rockhold chokes somebody, anybody who fights, jiu-jitsu is winning. So although Brian is a student of the Gracie Academy, Gracie University, and has been around our family and for his whole, you know, existence of martial arts and jiu-jitsu, that is very special, and we're very proud of him, and it's a very good time. But I don't get too, like, this is not a more special time for Gracie University, not by far. By a little bit, because it's Brian's time, and the students in the building are excited for Brian, so there is that. But let's just say that Brian fights for 3 more years, 2 more years, becomes a champion this time, next time, who knows, wins, loses. That comes second. That was Brian's journey, and he had great experiences, and he, you know, left his mark in the MMA world. But then it continues. People will forever be doing jiu-jitsu, will be using jiu-jitsu and MMA, and some better than others. And today, Brian is the best representation of jiu-jitsu and MMA. But it could be in 6 months, or in 3 years, in 7 years, there's going to be somebody else that we don't even know who that person is, but they're right now training 17-year-old, 16-year-old kid, and they're going to show up, and they're going to do jiu-jitsu, and people are going to say, oh my gosh, look at this kid's jiu-jitsu. And there it is. Jiu-jitsu's winning again, and I'm winning. And the funny part is that in these fights these days, even when jiu-jitsu is not very visible, when people watch it and it's like, oh yeah, you know, he got beat up or he lost a fight, he couldn't defend himself. I'm somebody who I always see the jiu-jitsu. There's always jiu-jitsu. Now, that's only because I am who I am, right? Conor McGregor, for example, he just lost his last fight to Khabib. And you could say that he got beat up, and he did. He lost the fight, but he did some great defending in the first round. There was some great survival skills. So even though Conor's not my student, I still learn. I still take a little bit from there. And Khabib did beautiful things also that I'm like, oh, wow, look how amazing he is. There's jiu-jitsu in there. It's unavoidable.
As we wrap up, just a couple questions for you. First of all, what does the Gracie name mean to you personally? Because the Gracie name has been immortalized in MMA, and there's so many of you in this family that there have been really great representations of the Gracie name, and there's also been some controversial displays of that Gracie name. I know you and Henner distance yourself from Metamoris a little bit, and Halleck Gracie over some business practices. What does the Gracie name mean to you, and is it something that does it upset you when you see other Gracies maybe not holding themselves in a manner that you would, or no?
No, it doesn't upset me. It's I don't really hold too much weight on the Gracie
Mm-hmm.
name. If you're a Gracie and our paths align, and the truth is, listen, whether you're a Gracie or not, I wish the best for you.
Yeah.
Does it, right? It doesn't matter what your last name is. Now, there are Gracies that might not, their visions might not align completely with ours. And that's okay too. They do what they want, and we do what we want. And I think in the end, at least in the Gracie family, every Gracie is trying to at least push and promote and build jiu-jitsu. And they all have their ideas on how to do that. And that's okay. And people, because the day and age that we're in, people around the world, they're able to follow and watch and learn from as many Gracies as they like, and non-Gracies. And the people are going to decide what makes sense for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've been to 50 restaurants in the last year, right? And there are some that I go back to and some that I'm like, never again. So I don't really have to worry about what other people are doing. I got to worry about what I'm doing, and just keep doing it to the best of my ability. And whether that means, how I promote jiu-jitsu and how I believe people should practice jiu-jitsu, for example, or the online university. I believe in the online university. And if you're a person out there in the world that doesn't believe in that, and maybe that makes you not want to so much, fall in line and fall, I guess, under the Gracie University umbrella, that's okay. You can do whatever you want. But if that makes sense to you and you see the beauty and the value in people having access to jiu-jitsu, whatever part of the world they're in, and you say, I appreciate that. And you know what? I don't have to train online, but they're doing good things for the world and for jiu-jitsu. And one day I'm going to find myself, going and visiting their school, or I'm going to go, support their school by wearing a t-shirt. Who knows? That's great also.
Yeah.
Nothing really matters. I guess the only thing that matters for me is that I'm doing what I enjoy, and that stands true right now, right? I wake up and I love my life and I'm excited about jiu-jitsu and the future of jiu-jitsu and Gracie University. So things are great, and everyone do what you got to do. And people will always be negative, and they will always hate, and they will always let you down. You will have expectations, and they'll be let down, and that's okay. And it's my opportunity to apply jiu-jitsu to the situation and distance myself from somebody. And I wish you the best, but you do your thing, I'll do my thing, and we'll go from there.
Last question for you. On your Instagram, you talk a lot about jiu-jitsu, of course, but you also talk about your personal life, how your thoughts on situations. And recently I saw a video about, I think you might have been on a playground or a park, and there was a parent disciplining their child in a way that you did not agree with, and you and your wife were talking about what the boundary of our other parents are to inform parents. Did you end up talking to that parent about how they were treating their child?
First of all, I don't want to say that I disagreed. I disagree, but it feels like a little bit of a strong word. But when I see a parent, their child didn't even hit another child. They just went like this, like pretend hit.
Yeah.
The mom grabs the child by the wrist and kind of like, say you're sorry, and sits the child down and says, I don't want you pretending or hitting anybody or trying to hit anybody. The energy was just so much. Now, when I see that, I just think to myself, okay, your child is going to keep doing that by the way that you're responding, by the way that you're treating your child, they're going to keep doing what you just told them to stop doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many other ways to talk to a child who did not hit another child, or who took a toy from another child. There's just so many ways. And the jiu-jitsu way of doing it is what I would suggest, right? Of just being so gentle and talking and saying, hey, you were lifting your hands up like you were going to hit that other child. I got a little nervous. I think that we don't hit other kids, but I just want to make sure that you know. Okay? I'll go ahead and keep playing. And if they do hit, it's okay. They're 6 years old or 4 years old. They're going to be fine. No one's going to have a broken nose. Then you go talk to them again. So as for speaking to that mother, I did not speak to that mother. Sometimes you have to look at the situation, and the mother herself, we don't know what she's going through.
Yeah, of course.
She's having a very long day, and maybe that's why she responded that way to her child. So I don't want to speak to her. I would love to speak to her. But I also want to be considerate of the fact that I don't know what she's been going through in her whole day of work and being with children all day. I have no idea. But I have spoken to parents, and it takes a little bit of time to kind of warm up to them and hello, and then make small comments, like explaining how, your child is just, they're excited and they're expressing themselves. And I don't think that they want to hit. They're just having fun. They're just acting and whatever. And especially when my child is involved, it's a little bit easier for me to kind of, drop some little bits of knowledge for the parent. But listen, parenting is a crazy job. It's very difficult. So I love it, and I'm fascinated with people doing things that are much different than how I do things. And even within my own, my extended family, parenting is being done differently all the time, and I enjoy seeing it, and it's trial and error. And if you have any questions about parenting, we could have a separate talk one day.
For sure. I'll let you know when I am a parent. Hopefully I got a little bit of time.
Funny part is a lot of parenting isn't even about being a parent, right? A lot of things that we'll discuss when it comes to parenting, which a huge amount of it came from my wife and all of her, I guess, interest in becoming the best possible mom and all of her research. So Victoria is very much the spearhead of that for us. And now I just kind of see it. And when I started seeing what she was learning and applying, I'm like, oh my goodness, jiu-jitsu, and it all of it ties into just people skills in real life, and it all ties into jiu-jitsu. So you'll be surprised you'll walk away from our parenting talk and you'll say, you know what, I'm more prepared for life. Forget parenting.
Ryron, thank you so much for the time. Brian Ortega fights Max Holloway for the UFC featherweight title at UFC 231 in Toronto, Ontario on December 8th. You can learn more about Gracie University by Googling Gracie University. Get some seminars and instruction from Henner, Ryron, everyone over there. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you. Fight's going to be great. Gracie University is going to be great. Jiu-jitsu. You guys, hopefully I'll meet these people that are listening and watching this one day in the world, and you'll tell me, where you heard about jiu-jitsu or Brian.
Please do.
Thank you.